talk about maybe how was the flight? I mean, was it
The
pretty
flight,
short?
well, the flight was it was nice.
Thank you very much, Andy Powell, for accepting our interview. So first, let's start with the classical questions which we ask to every other bands that will perform in Turkey. Are you excited to perform?
Well, yeah, because we don't come here very often, and we do know that the audiences are expectant. They know the music, and so I expect quite hardcore Wishbone Ash following. So very excited.
And last year, how was the sort of reciprocations from the audience?
In Ankara,
Yeah.
oh, it was off the charts. Holding up their iPhones and just willing the music to be better, and very inspirational for us. I mean, when we go to a place like this, it's just always a little bit more exotic.
Okay. And so I want to talk about the authenticity of your sound. I mean, more than 50 years of career, and you've been to lots of lineup changes. But unlike many other bands who've been through the same process, you managed to keep your unique sound. How did you manage that?
Well, I think integrity is a hard thing to maintain, and once in a while we've strayed off our course, but I think it's become my role to be aware of what the sound of Wishbone Ash is, and so I've always been aware. I've learned by mistakes that what our audience wants and what I think is our true direction. So it doesn't come by accident. We think about it a lot, and we get feedback from our community. We have a very strong fan community around the world, and they keep us on track as well. So it's a combination of all those things, really. Yeah.
Experience mostly. Yeah.
Excuse me?
Yeah, mostly experience taught you.
Experience. Yeah, that's the word. Yeah, exactly.
And I want to talk a little bit about your influence to many heavy metal bands like this.
Yes, Iron Maiden.
Yeah, like Dream Theater, like Metallica, somewhat.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, you have many other bands of your generation, like Led Zeppelin, like Pink Floyd. I mean, they are not considered as fathers of heavy metal as much as you are.
It's strange, yeah.
Why is it strange? What makes
Well,
it
there's
strange?
several elements in the way I think about it, that I've thought about it a lot. And I think, bands like Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, I think they're that little generation, a little bit younger than us, maybe 5 years or something. They possibly came to Wishbone Ash shows. And I think there's three things, really. The Flying V, at that time, when I started using it, was not one of the main guitars in rock.
Flying?
The Flying V guitar.
Oh, okay.
And now the Flying V in metal is a major symbol. And I think that I was one of the first in rock to use it. And so that generation would have seen that imagery in the newspapers and the magazines, and it would have had an impression, I think. The second thing is, I think our lyrics, which culminated in terms of direction with the Argus album, which is our third album. We got into the more folk, mystical side of things, which really spawned a lot of people's imagination. Like, it's not just in music, but in TV series too, like Game of Thrones, Star Wars, and I think that this sort of mystical metal imagery, started with bands like Wishbone Ash, perhaps Zeppelin a little bit, but certainly with Wishbone Ash. And then I just think like I mentioned earlier, the community. I think metal has a very strong community, and Wishbone Ash fans, it's a strong community around the world, and they all like a similar genre of music and influences and ideas. So I think those three things. It's actually a great question, because you're making me think about this now, but I think those three aspects would do it.
And also it might be your unique solos and riffs. I mean,
well, thank you.
Yeah, well, I mean, really,
yeah, sure.
I mean, as I listened to your bands for the first time, maybe it's early 2010s. I mean, I was expecting something like hard rock, you know. I mean, when I see the song titles like Argos, I mean, Warrior.
Yes.
Yeah, you know.
Hardcore.
And yeah, I was expecting hardcore, but I mean, I saw things like blues, actually.
Yes, I think being as we were one of the early bands that spawned that genre, that we weren't afraid to be more eclectic or to experiment. As you mentioned, blues, folk, we're pulling it all together and we're making a sound. And I don't think that freedom is available to metal bands now. They
Exactly.
have to be in one very specialized way of playing. So the early 70s was great because you were free to be that.
Yeah.
It was a very open time, and these specialized directions weren't formed. So I really enjoyed that. And I think the other thing is that we always stressed dynamics and melody in our music. So we were very much thinking about performing live and the impact on the audience and producing a show. Really. So all of those factors come into it. I'm glad you noticed that. That's great. Thank you.
Well,
Appreciate it.
yeah, I've been investigating many rock and metal bands since I was childhood, so
Yeah.
you're absolutely one of them. So
Okay.
my next question is about, I always wonder about this. Maybe I will ask it to Judas Priest or the other bands who are coming here too. Are you in contact? I mean, are you getting together or meeting with the bands of your generation? Like, for example, to be more specific, people like Tony Iommi, Jimmy Page, you know, I mean.
Well, we made an album once in Jimmy Page's studio in the UK, and we met Jimmy, and I've met several contemporaries through my life,
To be more specific?
Well, I mean, of course, in my travels, I've met people like Eric Clapton. I played sessions with two of the guys from the Beatles back in the day. I haven't met Tony Iommi, although we did play on shows with the early Black Sabbath, or they opened for us actually in the United States. So yeah, I've met many contemporary bands, whether it's Uriah Heep or Nazareth or Status Quo, any of those bands that came up around the time. Deep Purple, we toured with them not so long ago in South Africa. So you do meet people, although not as frequently as you might think, because bands are always doing their own shows, and often you're there and you go, so you don't hang out a lot.
Yeah, it's hard to plan and hang out.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
But how about like paying tribute in person or even writing you an email? For example, I mean, did Steve Harris, come up to you through any means?
Well, yeah, not personally actually, but in press and interviews, he's always acknowledged the influence of Wishbone Ash, which I greatly appreciate. And I think it was just not so long ago, Saxon actually recorded a song of ours, Throw Down the Sword. So, those kind of tributes are very, or maybe it was Biff, maybe the solo album.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, those kind of tributes are appreciated, and I'm always happy to get them. Yeah.
Okay, and let's talk about your maybe possible new music. I mean, your latest album is Coat of Arms 2020. Are you thinking of making a new one anytime soon?
Yeah, I'm always thinking. That was a strange period because, of course, we had the pandemic. And in a way, Coat of Arms was, in my mind, possibly going to be our last album. Because who knew what was going to happen after that? And so I felt at that point we'd earned our coat of arms, we could put our shield on the wall and say, this is possibly, the finale of a very long career, 50 odd years of music. But we got through the pandemic, and we were very surprised that we became very much in demand with live work. So we haven't stopped working since that point, and now it's time to take a breath, and this summer I'm sure will be a creative summer, and we'll possibly make another album. No great plans, but I think if we feel it, we'll do it.
Okay, yeah, that's really amazing. And lastly, many rock musicians, of course, they have a sort of political stance. Some of them show it with their words and some of them with their albums. I mean, how do you assess the current political situation around the world?
Oh my God, that's the $64,000 question. I think the world's in a lot of turmoil right now, and it's always tricky for musicians because we all have a lot of political feelings because, for one thing, we're traveling all the time and we have this unique privilege to see the world through the eyes of a somewhat normal person. And I think in some ways we see it almost more than politicians sometimes. I mean, for example, in America, there are some politicians that barely leave their own state, let alone, like for them, New York is even weird, so it's hard not to speak out, I've spoken out lyrically in songs before and made my feelings felt, but it's not always appreciated. So it's it's a fine line, You can allude to certain things. You can, the minute you get too direct, you might offend somebody. But then again, on the other hand, it's the role of an artist to kind of offend. So it's tricky, It's very tricky because we're in a commercial business too. We want to sell albums. We want to keep our career going. We don't sell so many albums these days. No one does. But we want to keep our career going and keep our audience and our community intact. But I'm sure that in terms of writing songs, there's an enormous amount of inspiration right now. Not always very positive, but it's there.
Yeah. So lastly, would you like to say anything else to Turkish audience?
Let's just get together tomorrow night and rock out, man. That's all I want to do, Okay. We're just looking forward to the spirit of the crowd and playing some great solos and just making a great sound and having a great party tomorrow night. That's really it.
Okay. And I'll be there too. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much. It's a great interview. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And
detay gör sadece.
Yeah, it's true.
yeah.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
You can be tricky, but you
But, it is to get the best image and visuals.